happy Earth Day or whatever. Can you guess what look I'm doing? If you guessed tree, you was kind of right. But for now, we're gonna get into the face. I start off with my eyebrows. I fill them in with the eyebrow pencil. Then I apply the eyebrow cream on top. That way I can apply the green from the Worldie palette and everything will stick. I then clean it up with Louise 06. And then I move on to the eyeshadows. I'm using the Worldie palette again. And I'm taking the shade Manchester that I'm going to apply very tightly onto my outer crease. Now, that might not make sense, but you'll see what I mean. So it's going to be on my outer crease, but it's only going to be right in like the crease, like right up in there. That way when I add the transition shades, I can blend them together and it will look like a beautiful blend out instead of just a black eye. Notice how towards the middle of my crease, I start blending upwards. This is mainly because when you do a blended cut crease, you would need it to somewhat go above your natural crease, especially when you have hooded eyes. That way when you apply concealer on your lids, the brown is still above your actual lid. At least, you know, the makeup or whatever. Now for my first transition shade, I started with Morph's Armed and Gorgeous palette in the shade Top Secret, which ultimately I usually use with P. Louise's 00. So being that I use it with 06, it's a little darker than I had planned it to be for my first transition shade. So instead I use P. Louise's Big Apple and Baggage just to brighten it up just a bit. I use Big Apple a little bit more because Baggage might be a little too bright. That's a little limey. Just a little limey. But I want the green to actually show fading in from the brown. So I apply it in the same half circle motion that I applied the brown, just on top. Moving on to Juvia's Saharan palette, and I'm using the shade Jamila as my third transitional shade, and I'm gonna apply that also in the half circle position, but then I'm also going to apply it above my inner crease, just slightly. That way that you see the orange brighten up at the top when I apply the concealer in my lid color. Ultimately, the vibe is supposed to give you like fall leaves in general, trees, nature, all of that. And ultimately, it's a really pretty blend out. Now I'm just gonna do it to the other side, and then I'm going to move on to my lid. I'm going to apply P. Louise 06 on my lid. That way it's still a very natural shade for my skin tone, but at the same time it's a little bit brighter. That way when I apply the shade that I'm going to apply over it, it's still going to show very well. I applied the shadow all over my lid while trying to avoid the outer crease that I already created because we ain't messing that up. But I'm also still going to blend brown into the outer edges after applying Katsina from the Juvia's palette onto my whole lid. I like to use a fluffy brush, that way it still catches every piece of the concealer while still keeping that soft crease look. Now that that's done, it should look like this. But I'm going to move on to liner. I'm using Glisten Cosmetics Gateau Split Liner. It only needs a little bit of water, and then it's a pretty chocolate brown. So pretty. I'm going to do that into my outer crease, but I'm not going to pull it out as a full liner. It's just going to line my lid, really. I also decided to use the other shade in the split just so I can make these wood-like effects, but it doesn't really give what it's supposed to be giving, so whatever. It's just there. Now, moving on to the final piece of the eye, finally, using Beats by Debs Cosmetics Muddy Magic Glitter. That is wild to say. Use some regular clear glue on my lid. I'm gonna apply that very thinly because when you add too much, it's going to be a nasty sticky eye. You want this to be a smooth base. Now, because this is supposed to be a soft look overall, I'm not going to just crazily tap glitter all over my lid. I'm gonna try and do this little by little because I don't want it to be too much. It'll just be really overpowering, and it wouldn't go with the look that I'm going with overall. But now this is finished. This is what the final product should look like. It is time to move on to face. I'm starting off with Milk Cosmetics Hydro Grip Primer, and I tap that in all over my face. Then I'm moving on to foundation using Kat Von D Good Apple Foundation in 080, P. Louise 06 and 7 to highlight my face, Fenty's Cream Bronzer in Toffee Mommy. Then I'm gonna set my face with Juvia, Fenty, and Miss Mercier. For blush, I'm using Juvia Saharan Blush Palette, Volume 1, and I'm using the shade Neo and Toby. But I don't use Toby that much, just a little bit. That's a little bit. I did use a little bit of Morph's Top Secret, but ultimately you really don't see it, so I kind of stopped. But it's in the blush, and it's on my forehead, so it's there, I guess. Moving on to Fenty's Sandcastle Highlight. So pretty. It's a very light gold, but I like it. Moving on to the extra stuff. So I'm taking that liner that I used earlier from Glisten Cosmetics, and I'm going to start applying a tree bark like design on my face. Yep, but not only on my face, I'm going to be doing my body too, just a little bit right up until where my shirt goes, because that looks too much work. But this was not that hard. Like, I know it looks like I'm just drawing a bunch of random lines, but I promise you guys, I actually am using an actual reference picture. There are some jagged lines, there are some straight lines, some lines cast off to the side, some lines split into two, some lines split into two and make like a little circle hole thingy, regular tree stuff. That's what I did on my face, and I actually bring you guys through the whole process. So I'm going to be handing out the little tips that I did use while doing this thing that I had no idea how to do. So watch and see. Here is where I start to thicken up the lines, because all of them can't be slim thick. Some of them gotta be, you know, real beautiful BBW lines. And I try to smoothen up some of the lines, because as you're just drawing them and trying to not use all your time but focus at the same time, you do start just drawing regular, like, random lines on your face. So I'm trying to make sure that they actually are lines with a purpose. You know, we can't just be out here doing stuff. Now is when I start to use a type hatching effect. I'm just drawing like little lines just to give a shading look to the tree. That way it's not just a boring tree with like 7 lines on it. It kind of has some realistic effect to it, because I ain't doing that much. Truly, like, I would love to get into shading, like real tree shading and all of that, but I want this to still very much be about my face. So yeah, the body wasn't hard to do. It was just very much focusing on something in front of me wherever I'm looking through. So I use my phone, but a mirror would probably be a little bit more effective, you know. I like to use the little mirror too for the spots I couldn't see. It almost like magnified it, but it was not as hard as it is perceived to be. Another thing that I started to notice about this liner is that it has a red undertone to it, meaning that if it's used really lightly or with too much water, you may see a more burgundy shade opposed to brown. So you will be going over it if you use too much water. And being that I was trying to be time efficient as well, I started using a little bit more water. That way I can just glide certain lines over it, and then I'll go over it if I needed to, which I did. Ultimately, I did. I really did. So I did end up doing like a little bit of shading, but like not too much. I started taking the other shade in the split and I started using it as kind of like a little shading tool for some of the lines. I didn't do all of them because I don't want it to overpower the dark brown, but I wanted to emphasize the lighter hints of brown that my own face didn't do. Just give it a little bit more of a woodsy effect. At this point, I'm really just emphasizing lines, adding more little hatching lines, and I'm not really doing anything. I kind of just want this to look as realistic as possible while only still using liner. That was the plan. So, yeah. But I told you guys I was going to walk you guys through the process, so I did. But it's not going to be much longer. I'm pretty much like wrapping it up now. Overall, I'm truly happy with what I put together. I couldn't really do my back, but my hair is going to be out and there's going to be 1,000,000+ leaves, so I think I'll be okay. Moving on to lips, I use Milk Cosmetics as a liner, and then in reality, I kind of just use Katsina on the inner parts of my lip. I didn't really want a color, kind of wanted to keep it really nude. But we're pretty much finished. We just need the lashes and the extra activities. I kind of really needed help, so I had my baby come and help me with the stuff I couldn't see on top of my head because the leaves were a lot. Like, that was a good pack from Amazon. Came with 12 separate garlands and it's like over 800 leaves in total, and it was only for like $10, like literally $9.99. Amazon is the best. And then I also got the headband, which is a tree branch headband. I hated the fact that it was only antlers, but I also knew ultimately you wasn't really going to see the branches that much. And it was only like $6, but free shipping because it's Amazon. Couldn't beat that. Guys, look at my baby trying to help too. Ain't doing a damn thing. But the look is actually done, and I hope you guys enjoyed this whole video as much as I enjoyed putting it together. This was super fun and this looks amazing as the final product. So, happy Earth Day and catch my next video soon.